Hi, this is John Kassir, the voice of the Cryptkeeper, and you're watching Sofa King Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen like trailers.
All right, Sofa King Cool here with John Kassir. How you doing, man?
Hi, this is John Kassir, the voice of the Cryptkeeper.
So what actually got you into doing voiceover?
You know, I used to do theater. I started out as a theater actor and got in a show about stand-up comics off Broadway, and it was a big hit. And I wound up on Star Search as a stand-up comic. So I had opportunity to win a lot of money and make myself famous on Star Search, and so I had to come up with an act real quick, and so I did a bunch of voices and characters in my act, and of course everybody, once they knew I did that, they started asking me to do their voiceover stuff.
Now you're most famous for the Cryptkeeper. Did you see the puppet first before you did?
They actually had the auditions at Kevin Yeager's studio, so you got to see. He was still working on it at the time, but you got to see his versions of what he was working on, and of course I based my choices on what I saw.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool because I collected the comic books as a kid, so it was really cool for me to have that opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, did you have an idea of what in your head because you had the comic books, or?
Yeah, I didn't know what I was gonna see when I went down to Kevin Yeager's studio. Obviously, I was stoked to see what he had down there. Knowing that he had, made Chucky and was such this great creature maker. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, I know exactly what to do. I knew that he loved saying these puns, and so I think even some of the other actors that were auditioning were like looking at the puns going, oh my God, this script's terrible. They're not getting it, that Cryptkeeper loves this stuff. It's like Shakespeare to him, And so, when I brought the texture to it, because I could see he had holes in his throat and rotting teeth and this whole thing, I knew he had to be funny because I knew that was the tone of the show, and I knew that was the tone of the comic book, and it was supposed to be fun. And so I gave him kind of a stand-up delivery, and then when I was doing it for Kevin, he was laughing so hard behind the little boom box that he was recording me on. I started laughing and realizing this is a great, that kind of comic. He's one of those comic characters that laughs at his own jokes all the time.
Right.
I started cackling for him, and he was like, doing this with me. And next day he had me doing it for Joel Silver and Dick Donner in their office, and the rest was history.
Now, did you get to ad-lib at all, or was everything scripted? Or?
They had really good writers for that kind of thing, and over the years I would do some ad-libbing, and then they'd go back and write something really, good based on what I did, that kind of thing. Of course, I had to do a lot of ad-libbing when it came to doing interviews or radio interviews and a lot of stuff as the Cryptkeeper, because a lot of times they would, I'd get paid to go and promote the show. Over 50-something radio stations over 2 days before the launch of the new season, kind of thing, and I would completely have to improvise as the Cryptkeeper. But ultimately, you could tell when the writing was good and when the writing wasn't, because sometimes they'd merchandise, they'd farm out the Cryptkeeper to some commercial or sports team or something like that. And sometimes their writing wasn't quite as good as what our writers were doing. It was hard to sell that as compared to what these guys were doing.
Right.
So I definitely had an appreciation for their consistency in the tone of what they were creating. These great puns and you can go on forever with it. Once you get started, you can come up with your own and just keep going and going.
Did you ever think it was ever going to be this big? I mean, years later, people are still running up and they're like, oh my God, it's the Crypt Keeper.
Well, first of all, I had no idea it was going to be that big. You know, HBO was still starting out. I had done their first series, First and 10, and knew that they had an audience, but it wasn't as big as the network audiences at all at that time. There weren't all these other streaming channels and stuff. You know, people, the idea of people paying extra for, you know, programming was a new concept still. Tales from the Crypt brought a lot of people to HBO. You know, we were surprised how popular it was right out of the gate. I think the producers knew. I mean, these were the biggest producers in the business, and they were able to get the best actors, the best directors, everybody, the best artisans to work on this show. I was proud to be, you know, considered the best at what I was doing, you know, bringing that to it. But I initially, having, you know, collected the comic books, I thought it was going to be the same as, you know, comic book fans would be into it or whatever. We certainly didn't know kids were watching it. We thought he was, you know, again, because it was HBO and nudity language, but then of course it was highly edited and put out on Fox after that. And now we find out that there are more kids watching it than there were adults, and they've all grown up now and they're rabid for it. There's a bigger fan base for it now than there originally was.
You were the first HBO show to get its own movie in the theater.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably true, for sure, yeah. Yeah, pretty incredible. 3 films we wound up doing, which is pretty incredible, yeah.
Remember the first day that it came out, it was amazing. It's a big screen.
Yeah.
Now, there's talks of a reboot.
You know, we've always wanted to reboot it. It's really a matter of securing the rights from EC Comics. You know, we're hoping to be able to do that. You know, there's been other talks of other people doing reboots, which of course wouldn't involve me or our Cryptkeeper or the guys, you know, the partners, they call themselves, Tales from the Crypt Holdings, that I did Tales from the Crypt with for HBO. I know M. Night Shyamalan was trying to do a version of it for their horror block that they were planning for TNT, but right now nothing is solid in any of those situations, but we're trying and would love to secure the rights. When I say we, I mean the producers I work for are anxious to secure the rights back from EC Comics and William Gaines' family to do it again. Because I would hope that they would want us to do it because it's their legacy. It's not just an annuity, you know, it's their legacy. Their father's legacy, their grandfather's legacy. And these guys did such a great job. I mean, it was a very expensive show to produce back in its day, so I don't, you know, obviously some merchandising and stuff, they made some money, but it wasn't I don't ever think it was a cash cow for anybody, you know, so making the show, you know, would mean, you know, getting somebody to put up enough money to make it as good as it was, because you couldn't make it not as good as it was. Right. They did such a good job. You did anything less, there's too many people that are into the show, love the show, and remember the show for them to get away with doing a version that's not as good, you know?
Now, could you see going back to HBO if it happened, or maybe a streaming outlet?
Yeah, I could imagine. I would imagine any of the streaming outlets, whether it be Amazon or Netflix or, you know, any of those places would be a great place for Tales from the Crypt. Obviously, it's an anthology show, so you would want to do enough episodes to make it worthwhile. If HBO, you know, a lot of the shows they don't, because it's expensive to produce these shows, they do, you know, only X amount of shows each season. But obviously, it would be HBO has always been a great home for Tales from the Crypt. I worked for them a lot over the years, doing First and 10 for 6-7 years and Tales from the Crypt for 7 years, and I got the opportunity to work on Dream On and do comedy specials and stuff like that. They've obviously always been a great home for this kind of material. So who knows? You know, once the producers would hopefully get the rights and produce the show, there would be a lot of people who would be interested in having it on their channel.
Now, you do a lot of these comic conventions. What is it like when these people come up to you and just praise you?
You know, I do a couple a year. I wish I could do more, but you know, when you're busy, it's hard to get out to a lot of them. And I absolutely love it. You know, first of all, it's giving back to the fans. It's amazing to me to see how many people have grown up with this show and tell me the stories about how they weren't allowed to watch it, but they snuck down anyway, or their parents wouldn't let them watch it, so they watched it with their grandma on the weekends, or you know, some people just had hip parents and let them watch it. But there's, like I said, there's a bigger fan base for it now than there ever was. So it's amazing for me. I have a good time. You know, you know, I sign some autographs, take a little money, they do autographs, but ultimately it's not about that. It's me. I'd rather do this than social media. I'd rather actually look my fans in the face and get to meet them and, you know, have that moment. It's a really, I'm a live performer by heart. You know, I started in the theater and I, you know, made my way into television by stand-up comedy and that kind of thing. So I like being in front of an audience and enjoying people one-on-one, and you know, it's a really fun thing. And I'm also a horror fan too, so I get to see a lot of things that, you know.
That's gotta be a perk for sure.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that a lot of your fans are older now and they're turning their kids on to it.
Yeah.
What's it like when you see a kid and they hear the voice and
I'm surprised when, you know, like a 8-year-old comes up and goes, "Mommy, I want a picture of the Crypt Keeper." I was like, "How does he know the Crypt Keeper?" "Oh, we showed him the video. We just show him the wraparounds right now as he gets older." And of course, some people have even found the cartoon. I don't know if the game show, we had a game show too, the Tales from the Crypt Keeper's Haunted House, which was on it. I don't know if that's available anywhere for people to watch, but that was a lot of fun too. So, yeah.
People want to follow up, they want to know more about you.
You know, they can always find me on Facebook at John Kassir, JOHNKASSIR. They can find me on Twitter at John Kassir and Instagram at John Kassir. Come around.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're so welcome. It's my pleasure. Thank you.